First of all, I'm going to allow the panel just to introduce themselves so that you know the distinguished gang of people who are going to be answering that. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you.
It may be increasing order of distinction. It certainly starts with the lowest. Thank you, Ian. I'm Mike Berry. I'm ex-big agencies. These days, I'm an independent consultant and trainer. I'm course tutor for the IDM Digital Diploma. And I'm also working directly with quite a lot of small companies, mainly in B2B. And I see things changing, particularly in the social media world. And I think often B2B marketers feel a bit second class and a bit neglected by training and by the industry publications. But I think it's a fascinating area and really important. And I think social media is at last beginning to work for some of them.
Excellent. I need to know how it's working, so we'll come to that in a second. Louise, next.
Yes, hello, I'm Louise Green and I'm Group Marketing Director at Bureau van Dijk. We're a business intelligence company. We are selling solutions around company and business intelligence, and we have 30 offices across the globe, so international business and selling into a range of business functions, including sales and marketing.
Excellent. John?
Hi, I'm John Noble. I'm Director at Proactive Business Information. Proactive are a marketing services provider with a number of different solutions across traditional mail, print, data segmentation, data analysis, and some innovative digital services. And my particular area of expertise is the use of data. And we've seen the changing world of marketing, new technologies, new channels, but there's one thing that's been constant across everything, and that is the use of data. So I'll be coming at it from perhaps more of a data angle.
Cool. Steve.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Kemish. I'm chair of the IDM's Digital Marketing Council and also joint MD of an organisation called Cyance. We're a marketing agency. We work in predominantly business-to-business on multi-channel marketing, so we're channel independent. Therefore, social media is an element of what we do with some of the organisations we work with. Selfishly, if I may, perhaps just a show of hands from the audience to Ian's participation piece. Hands up who is in business-to-business or represents a business-to-business brand here. Okay, and what about consumer? Okay, and anybody I've missed? Charities or anything else in the middle? Okay, great. That's just to try and help set the scene in terms of the mix of room.
Excellent. Okay, so now here's your first test. Did you hear what they said at the back? Because it's really noisy in here. Okay, all right, so here we go. The big question is, we've got 25 minutes left, folks. One thing that I need to know about this new social world that I can turn into money for my business quickly. Mike.
Okay, thank you. I think the first thing that I'm going to say is content. That's the only thing I'm allowed to say, isn't it? We're only allowed one thing each. You talk about content marketing, and those of us with grey hair that have been in marketing for a couple of years would say, well, that's old wine in new bottles. We've always needed good content in every single discipline, every single communication, because you can't bore people into buying, as I think David Ogilvy once said. But I do think that good content may be cheaper than a lot of people realise. Even if you're a relatively small company, you may have colleagues who are absolute experts at something about your industry, something about your business. You may have even suppliers or colleagues or partners who are happy to give you something that's really quite interesting to lots of people, therefore can position you as thought leaders. So when we talk about social media for SMEs, I don't think we really in the UK mean Facebook. We probably don't mean Pinterest at this stage, but we may well mean content marketing. And the best place for that might very well be on your own blog, but why not then use Twitter to drive people to it? And it's all about good content, which may, if not free, it may be very inexpensive, and you probably don't need to pay expensive outside suppliers in many cases to get good content.
Right. Can I just stop you there a second? Does everybody know what he means by content? Okay, so you're going to be able to tell me afterwards. Can we just be clear? Are you talking about I need to write a blog?
And means something interesting that people want to consume, probably written. So it could be some interesting article, some interesting thought piece. Can I use some more jargon? A white paper, a survey, something which will attract people's attention and actually give them some value.
Okay.
It could actually be a video, it could be an infographic. But if we call all of that content, it's a slightly better word than stuff, isn't it?
Okay, good. Louise?
I'm going to be a bit controversial and as a a small business, I'm going to advise you what not to do. I don't think, as in the B2B space, we are actually using things like Twitter effectively to drive revenue. And I think you would be better advised to look for more direct routes to customer than using things like Twitter. I think they're great for other things, but as direct marketers, B2B marketers, I don't think we're very good at using it effectively. And I think we have to work out whether our audience is on there. We have, certainly in our business, a lot of customers that are probably slow adopters of this type of thing, such as Twitter, and I'm not really sure that's what it's for. So rather than, we can maybe talk a bit later about what I would say you should do, I would say at the moment, focus elsewhere. A lot of people will be saying get on social media like Twitter, but I would say be very cautious about it.
Thank you. Just as a small question, anybody tweeting as we're going along here? Other than you, Jake? Only nice things. John.
Okay, I suppose I'm going to be a little bit controversial. Our view is, certainly as a direct marketeer, direct marketing is about using data to drive your communications. And one of the problems that we find with social media is there's a lack of data connectivity. So, for example, if you walk into Tesco's and Sainsbury's and buy products, you use your loyalty card and they can track that transaction back to you as an individual and build up a history, transactional history of what you're spending. If you're going onto a website and you're logging in, you can track what people are doing. One of the problems with social media is it doesn't connect to the rest of direct marketing. My Twitter name, I'm not going to give it here, it's probably too embarrassing, but any organisation I interact with cannot tie what I'm tweeting to me as an individual. So they can't really do so much with it. It's great for brand awareness and building brands, but in terms of driving direct response and using data to do that, it just doesn't really sit. I know social media is the buzz, everyone's talking about it, but when you look at the effectiveness of direct marketing, some of the traditional old ways still work and outperform. And I'll give you a good example of this. We're exhibiting at the show and we did quite a bit of pre-show activity. Part of that involved mailing 2,000 pre-registered attendees to invite them to our stand. It involved tweeting the whole entire visitor audience, and it also involved our own email marketing where we managed to pull a list to email of visitors and also our own email list, and we hit about 28,000 people. 6 people have turned up at our stand today with a printed postcard saying, I received this, I've come to see you. Everyone who's come to our stand, we're trying to source where it's come from. Not a single person said, I saw your tweet and I've come to your stand. Not a single person said, I received an email, I came to your stand. But the good old-fashioned printed postcard with an invitation has driven 6 people, 6 leads to the stand. So traditional methods of marketing can still drive ROI. And when we actually look more in depth as to what happened with the show campaign, we had, I think in terms of, we used Pearl's personalisation technology to track what was coming from direct mail and what was coming from email. And 28,000 emails were sent and 2,000 pieces of direct mail were sent. We had over 100 people interact from the direct mail. We had 60 people from the email. Now, the offering was the same, the competition was the same, the messaging was the same. Direct mail, if you work it out, it's about 60 times greater the response was from direct mail compared to the email. Compared to social media, it delivered nothing. So there's a real live example now, and it's still going on, and we're still tracking it, but direct mail is killing the other channels. Now, I'm not here to sell direct mail, because we do other things as well, and we're active in the other channels. But I suppose what I'm trying to get across is don't forget the traditional formats, because they still work. It's easy to get caught up in all the buzzwords and the new technology. It's all great. And yeah, I'm on Twitter, I've got a Facebook account, and we've got a LinkedIn page, and it's all great. But when it comes to driving direct response, direct revenue, if you are using your data effectively in traditional channels, you can still drive very, very good ROI.
Brilliant. John, I'm going to hand over to Steve.
So, okay, I'm bored already. Let's just be a bit controversial, properly controversial. Firstly, there's this business to business, business to consumer, 50% of you on one side, 50% the other. I think we can all be best friends together. The divide between business to business and business to consumer is not as great as those parties make out. I think you have to remember that we're dealing mostly business to human. You're all business to business people if you have a job, and you're all consumers and human beings. So actually, the mindset the process you go through to make decisions, whether you're making decisions for you to spend on your credit card or buying on behalf of your organisation, are fundamentally, in my view, not that different. What that means is that I think social media has a part to play for every organisation. If we took a time machine and went back to this event 2 years ago, the cool area would be all the social marketing, social media agencies, the cool kids on the block. Interestingly, they're not here anymore. Mm-hmm. That's not to say social media is not being done, but what's happened is common sense has kicked in and said it's just another integrated channel for us, where I think there's great value, regardless of where you work, whether it's consumer or business, is probably a low resolution or up in the top of the funnel, depending on how you like to look at things. Social is a great way, to John's point in the data, and actually to counter slightly, I think there's an awful lot of good, valuable social data out there. The great thing is it's free. You just need to know where you're looking. Anybody can use LinkedIn to go and find out information on their customers or their targets, even prospects. If you happen to sell like somebody like Sage here at this event to finance directors, typically, go and use LinkedIn to find out how many finance directors are on LinkedIn, and then maybe go and find out what groups they're on in LinkedIn. Now that may give you a way at the top of that funnel in a low resolution way to at least listen to what these people are doing and saying. It doesn't give you the right to go in there and start a conversation or try and sell to them, but there's an awful lot of insight we can tap into for free as an example. And then it's a case, back to Mike's point, I think, content is king. That's certainly where the PR agencies of 4 years ago became social media agencies 2 years ago. Now they're content marketing agencies because it's become buzz. But content has always been really valuable. And underneath all of this, just to try and wrap up so I don't lament forever, I think relevance is still key. Social can play a pace for you in terms of relevance of getting your message or bridging a gap, taking somebody on that next point. I really strongly believe that's at the top of the funnel. It's when they're low resolution and you don't know who they are. But let your content free, put it out there and let people find it. They won't, in most business-to-business organisations, come in their millions, but they may come in quality numbers as opposed to quantity numbers that justify taking them to the next stage. If you look for ROI on its own on social media, I think you're going to lose your job. I think it's about part attribution to say, where does social fit in alongside the other channels I need to take somebody on a journey. In the same way, it's very difficult to prove ROI for just one marketing channel. So I think, it's business as usual. Treat it as the same as others. Treat it with respect, and don't expect it to be the emperor's new clothes in terms of solving all of your ills. There isn't a marketing provider solution channel out there that will do everything for everybody.
Cool.
The end.
So far, so good, everybody? Nobody throwing rocks? I am the Jeremy Kyle of direct marketing, so it might get nasty later on. Jake, did you tweet, by the way, if you look for ROI in social media, you will lose your job? Okay. Can you? Anybody disagree with that? Okay, let's just do this a second. Who here thinks that social media is really important for direct marketing? So there's 2 hands up and 1 person going to sneeze. 3 hands up. And who here is looking to see how they can use some of the old techniques like direct mail and other things to really try and invigorate their business? 1, 2, more. Okay. So I thought there was a really interesting case there about what was going on with direct mail and with data. We did a piece, we sent out an email recently where we got, I think it was a 35% click-through rate, but it came from using data and using content in a really quite clever way. And it seems to me that people have stopped being clever. It seems to me that if I just very quickly check my inbox, hold on. Okay, so here we are. If you can't read this email, click here. Hello. You're on this list because you've subscribed to something else. That's what is in my inbox on my iPhone right now. 50% of people will read your emails first on their iPhone, and that's all you get. 1 line. Please unsubscribe here is normally what it says. The first line. In this so Mike, I want to pick this up with you. We're in a really over-communicated world, and there's a lot of people out there who just want to add to that communication. In this over-communicated world, how do I get my content through to the right people? How do I let them know that my content even exists in the first place without boring them?
Well, I think we have to go back to a very old direct marketing truth, which is that the first thing is to know your customers, really know them. And that's using data in an intelligent way to actually get real insights from it. And, those guys and girls are the ones that are going to be essential to all our businesses going forward. The people that can look at this massive data that we've suddenly got and make some sense of it so that marketers can do stuff differently, i.e. better. I think that we're in a situation where the consumers are completely inundated with various different messages in all media. And we've all learned to filter stuff out, haven't we?
Yeah.
Just in order to survive. We don't read every word of every direct mail letter we receive, and we don't walk down a street reading every billboard, and we don't look at a magazine and go through all the ads, because we wouldn't be able to live our lives. So online we've developed banner blindness, we've got a click habit, so everything goes straight in the junk or into the bin, and it's really got to work to engage us and to be saved and to get any attention from anyone. So I think it's the same old. We've, if anything, got more of a challenge as marketers making decisions between all these new channels. I do know that some small businesses are doing quite well on Twitter, but as a result of that, they haven't spent so much money on other things. The finance director hasn't said, we've got iPhone apps now, here's some more money, go and spend it, have a good time. Your budget is actually cut 10% year on year. Are you sure you still want to spend all this on doing a new iPhone app? So actually, marketers are under more pressure than ever. But that doesn't mean we should neglect the new media, the newer media, because customers are moving, and we've always had to fish where the fish are. So we've got very tough decisions to make, but that's part of the fun.
But we're direct marketers, so it's all about measuring stuff for us, isn't it? So being on Twitter is no use. Actually getting people to buy things is what we do as direct marketers, right?
But if you could prove that Twitter were helping to encourage people to buy things, and when your tweet goes out, your hits on your website go up and your conversions go up, which you can count, that might be interesting.
But you can't.
I think we're getting very close in certain cases. I think that it's fair to say that social media is less easily measurable than many other activities. But as direct marketers, we've been saying that TV hasn't been measurable for a long time. Doesn't mean it's wrong, does it? And TV is thriving. So, as direct marketers, I don't think we should say we're not really marketers, we're just direct marketing people. We've got to look at the whole picture.
It's about response, isn't it, Steve?
So just to challenge your point earlier about your 35% click-through rate, that doesn't mean no disrespect, Ian. It doesn't mean anything to me. What I'm interested in is how many conversions or how many sales did you make. And I think the interesting point is if you take email with a well-known metric, that's great in terms of campaign level process, but it doesn't mean you're a successful marketer or your campaign's been successful. You could argue the same is for Twitter engagement, Twitter click-through, Twitter followers, whatever it may be. I think there's definitely a place to play for social for a number of organisations in this room. Let me say, I'm not an advocate of social media. I don't work for a social media agency. Christ help me, I never will. It is about actually what's most powerful to us to try and get people to move along that engagement line. That email alone may well sell things. If you're a consumer brand and you sell £7 books on an e-commerce website, it may be that the click-through rate is linear to the number of sales. But if you work in business to business where your product is probably quite complex and expensive and your lead time of sales could be months, if not years, the click, the follow, the tweet, the post, the comment, and by the way, another area of social to expand it out that I think is really interesting for business to business is forums, not necessarily the big hitters of LinkedIn's groups, but the specialist forums that if you Google for brands and your names, you'll find if you go through your analytics package on your website and look for where people come from your website from, you'll find a whole myriad of bloggers and probably an array of different forums you never knew existed but are packed full of specialists, influencers in your market who may hold a key. So I think it's about where that particular interaction happens and aligned to the complexity and or the lead or sales time that your product or service is likely to have will give you, to my kind of slightly facetious point earlier about, kill yourself trying to find ROI. I think you can, but I think it's
I agree with you on that point.
But I'm qualifying it as much as I don't think you shouldn't be looking for it. Yep. Christ, we should, but you aren't going to find it easily. It's a multi-channel, a multi-touch piece that most marketing campaigns, business or consumer, need to get the most results.
Okay. So, if we're not there yet with social, where are we there? Where should I spend my money, Louise? What am I doing? Remind me.
Well, I think you should do nothing in isolation. We are big fans of direct mail. I think it's very effective. You need to target it well, and we talked about data. I think we need to remember as well that technology is really helping us with data. It's no longer a discrete part of our business. If you're buying data in, it doesn't have to sit separately anymore as a new list you've bought. We are talking to more and more people about how they can integrate it within their CRM system. So sales and marketing teams can be getting much better at knowing more about their customer and knowing when to approach them. We want to get the right message to the right people at the right time, and we have more opportunity to do that than we ever have before.
Yep.
And technology and data are really helping us do that. And I would say combine all your projects together. That's not a new idea, but doing direct mail combined with email marketing. But most importantly for us, because we have a consultative sales approach, because we have a sophisticated product, especially in some of the markets we sell into, you really have to make sure your sales and marketing teams are really well aligned and that they have got the same goals. What we're doing as marketers in our business is actually selling the face-to-face meeting. We're not selling our product. All our marketing is about getting our salespeople in front of the right people. And I think sometimes we forget that. We think we're marketing our product all the time, the sale of it, but it's not. It's the next stage of the sales process that we need to look at.
I think that's really, really just so powerful, because the number of times we see people who create marketing campaigns that have no relevance to the sales at all. Still today, I mean, what you're saying is blindingly obvious. The purpose of marketing is surely to drive sales.
Yeah.
Well, direct marketing anyway.
Yeah.
Excellent. John?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case. I still come back to the data angle. I mean, you're talking about where social is now. Where it will be, eventually it will connect up properly to the database. So, when you go into the shop and you buy things, if you then go online and you're interacting with the website, that can all be tracked. It's all, your engagement with the business is being tracked. You can then look at the customer journeys. You still can't, with Twitter, unless you know what people's Twitter names are, you can't do anything with it. Or on Facebook, unless you know who it is, you can't put that back into a database. Now, technology is changing, and that I'm sure in the next few years we'll see that. And I think once the technology is there, or that's if the big social media players allow it, if you can then tie social media engagement and activity back into the database, then you really are getting this single customer view, not in terms of what they're doing when they're spending, or perhaps what they're doing on your website, but what they're saying about you in the digital world. So I think further down the line, if the technology continues to develop and the owners of Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook allow that access, then it will be very powerful. I'd like to come back to Steve's point about LinkedIn, and in a business-to-business perspective, LinkedIn is a very powerful database tool. And in fact, if LinkedIn actually released their database into the marketplace, they'd probably wipe out every data vendor out there, some of them exhibiting here, because it is a fast-growing database. It's self-cleaning. When people leave a job and go to another job, they're going to update it themselves, so there's less recency issues. They have a very, very powerful business database, and as a sales tool, it is very good in terms of doing research, making contact with people. LinkedIn is probably closer to sitting with direct marketing than perhaps in a business-to-business perspective than Facebook and Twitter are in a consumer perspective. Great, you've got a load of people like your brand, they might be talking about it, it's all good stuff, it's all PR, it's all brand awareness, but there still isn't tangible revenue. Unless you can place adverts, which I know you can do, and you're placing specific adverts to specific people, you can drive direct response. And an example of that recently, for my sins, I'm a Southampton season ticket holder, and on my Facebook page it's picked up that that's who I follow, and when I log into Facebook on a match day, I get a Betfair advert pop up giving me the odds on who Saints are playing that day. That's nice targeted advertising. I respond to that and engage, and there's some direct ROI. You can get direct ROI with social, but I don't know how much Betfair have paid Facebook to be able to do it, but I guess it's in the tens of thousands of pounds to be able to place that sort of adverts on the site, which is great if you're a big brand and you've got 6-figure, 7-figure marketing budgets. But for the small and medium business enterprise, you can't take advantage of that in the same way. You don't have the budget, and you've only got that limited limited money. So it's about finding what does work and what doesn't. And it comes back to Mike's point about understanding your customers and prospects effectively and finding out what works for them. There's also, I think, a demographic split in terms of your audiences. For example, if you are engaging on a business to consumer aspect with younger people, well, yeah, you're going to interact with them more perhaps on a social environment than perhaps elderly people if you're selling them holidays. Someone like Saga is more likely to do that through traditional catalogues of their holidays mailed out to elderly people, because these elderly people aren't sat on Facebook looking for their holidays perhaps. So I think these different channels work in different ways, and I guess the general consensus is a multi-channeled approach. You can't really say one works better than another. It depends on the application, it depends on the audience. So it really comes back to getting back to your database and understanding who your customers are and who your prospects are, and then driving your strategy from there, as opposed to saying, well, I'm going to try this channel or I'm going to try that channel. It's get back to the basics, get back to the data first, and then everything else will follow, because data spans all of the channels.
Okie dokie. All right, so we've got 5 minutes left. What questions haven't we answered so far? Who said, I want you to answer this question up here? Was that one of you? Was that you? Okay. Have we answered it yet? Are we getting there? What else do you want to know? Sorry, I should come and give you a microphone.
I don't think there's a definite answer for that question, because we've got probably 2 or 3 different opinions up here. From a personal perspective, I work in business-to-business environment, and I work for a web development company. When I post out tweets or write on the blog, we attract other web developers, but they're not necessarily the decision makers. So that's the problem that we have.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Sorry, I'll take that back because it's feeding back. It's a really interesting issue about whether you're actually advertising to the people who are going to buy and spend money, which is who I need to advertise to, or whether you're advertising to your competition, which is kind of the wrong kind of advertising at the end of the day. Do you use LinkedIn? Not a great deal. Does anybody, who in here uses LinkedIn for marketing, as in sales lead generation, market generation? 1, 2, 3, 4. Who uses LinkedIn to go find people to recruit for recruitment purposes? Okay. Top tip, use LinkedIn for recruitment. It's fantastic. It's probably the #1 recruitment tool that's out there. It's so cheap, it's silly. The only thing I would give you as a piece of advice is just make sure that you put in your ad up the top, you have to have a UK visa to apply for this job. Because you get applications. We've got a job out at the moment in an IT role. I think we spent £195. We've had 30 astonishingly good candidates come in as a result of it. Really, really positive. So that's definitely works for us. That's the only business 2.0 social thing that I can really, truly say works for us at this point in time, and that is using LinkedIn for advertising. Yes, sir. I'm going to give you the mic, if I may.
Sorry, more of a question for the panel than anything else. When it comes to whatever marketing channel you use, whether that's social or direct marketing or otherwise, is it a case of quantity over quality or quality over quantity?
Depends if you want to keep your job or not, I think.
Can I start on that one, please, Ian?
Yep, of course.
I think it has to be quality, and there's an old cliche in digital. There's already old cliches in the young discipline of digital marketing that maybe more traffic is not your problem. Just getting more and more people to come to your website may not be the solution. It may be that you need fewer people who are the right people. And going back to my point on Twitter, I've known people have as few as 200 followers on Twitter, but they are the right people, and they're sharing their good content, and they're also participating in LinkedIn groups, and there absolutely is quality. And having said that, we know there's going to be some wastage. So, looking at the number of people who are making contact with your company, not every one of them is going to turn into a hot sales lead. So, as they say, you have to kiss a few frogs. But it doesn't mean you should go either spam or junk mail, whichever you like to call it, because I think those days are gone for both those disciplines.
Okay. Good. Any other questions from the audience?
Can I just add on to that? I'm sure we would all agree that quality is really important, but there are so many cliched campaigns going on around. The amount of campaigns around Valentine's Day that I got into my email inbox with hearts on them that were to do with printers and things like that. And we just need to make sure that we're avoiding cliches and we are looking at the quality of the campaigns we're putting together, because we can damage our brands very easily by doing these things unprofessionally.
We were having that conversation yesterday. We were talking about doing something for Mother's Day, which, by the way, is next week?
10th.
The 10th of March. It's next week. And we were saying we should do a Mother's Day campaign, and then we said, yeah, but we're probably not the first people to have had that idea. Was there a hand? Yes. Can I just get you to pass that back? Thank you.
Thank you. We've heard the panel talking about social media in terms of LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, the platforms that we know.
Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts about taking it one step further to sort of tighter engagement with customers, building communities on separate platforms that are not those platforms that are out there that everybody's talking about? It seems to me that in the direct marketers world, that's where the action's going to be. That's where we're going to know about what our customers respond to, and we can begin to measure interactions. What are your thoughts on community platforms?
Steve, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in those. It's a really good point. A couple of example brands that might be worth looking at. They're in the IT sector, but IT sector tends to be a leader in a lot of places. Doesn't mean they get it right, but they're good places to look for the good and the bad. Sophos, who are an antivirus and security company, have an incredible community that they've built. Their head of social, Carol, who sits in that organisation, is left to play with cool things, and by doing that she has developed an audience of over 1 million people interested globally in security and antivirus, that sort of thing. She can't directly prove an ROI, but you can near as damn as do it in terms of the engagement she does. It comes back to Mike's point of content, but there's built a fiercely loyal community of people. It's not one brand talking to everybody. It's actually a multi-tiered conversation amongst the people, so the key is that community. Juniper Networks as well, who compete in the Cisco space, much smaller than Cisco, but went in an interesting route to say, okay, how can we mobilise or get our engineers, who are our customers? And I think to your point earlier, sir, the developers, although they may be consuming your content, they may not be the decision makers. They're highly likely to be influencers. And by getting some kind of engagement, it may be there's conversations going on that you can't see, that when that senior person comes to that developer and says, look, we need a new company, who do you recommend? They've already got that prior knowledge. So I think there's a couple of brands like that are doing it really well. It's not easy and it's not cheap to do. No. I would, the kind of adage, I said this earlier at another presentation, build it and they will come, is absolute bollocks, frankly, in terms of marketing. It is a case of you have to build it and work really, really hard to get them there. So it's not for everyone. However, you may be able to latch into other existing platforms that are there. And back to LinkedIn groups, at least as a test ground, can you find people that you would like to engage with already hanging out in groups? And if you don't do anything with that group, at least you can listen and see what the kind of conversation flow is, and how can you learn to take some of that away and perhaps build it yourself or cross-fertilise it. So, I think there's a huge value in that.
Guys, I'm really conscious that we've sort of run over at this point in time. Anybody else want to comment on that last point before I come to you for final thoughts? Okay, so here we go. I am a man. I won't remember anything. I'm not taking any notes. I just need one thing, and you need to keep it short and simple. What am I doing tomorrow morning? Remind me. John.
Data, and then data.
Okay, Louise?
You can do a number of things, but you've got to do it well.
I'm screwed in that case. Mike?
Know your customer really, really well.
Excellent. Steve?
If you want to explore social, go and download a free tool like TweetDeck or Hootsuite and go and use that as a search tool, to John's point with data again, to say, okay, from a brand name or from terms or language that you think people in your industry will be searching on or talking about, go and prove whether there are people already out there talking in and around your subject. If there are, perhaps you should try and mobilise them. If there are not, maybe put social to the back of the digital toolkit and think on something else.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Will you please thank the panel? Enjoy the rest of your day.